Golly, were you selling drugs?
No, I just had a water ban.
I never. Oh my God, those things were terrible.
We had to reinforce the floor in my trailer to put my water ban.
Why on earth? Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Overlap Podcast, episode 145, by the way. And if you're new or just coming back for the first time in a while to the Overlap Podcast, this is the podcast where we discuss and study the overlaps between work, fitness, family, faith, parenting, and leadership, with the idea that becoming better in one aspect of your life helps you become better in all aspects of life, hence the overlap, right? And what we're doing in these discussions, really, it's kind of business driven. But with that in mind, we're trying to simplify big business brilliance for small business leaders. Keith and I thought that there's just every podcast out there that related to business was kind of related to, 500 employees and, $50 million budgets and whatnot. And that's not who our audience is. So,
we're still waiting on the big business brilliance.
That's a bold statement, big business brilliance. We understand it so well that we're boiling it down for you. But either way, it sounds really good, and that's our aim. So
yeah, it's why we do this podcast. I mean, started out as vanity.
Yeah. Some could say that it still is.
Maybe
but either way, I'm having a good time.
Yeah, I'm having a good time.
If no one else listens, we're at least getting our ideas out and thinking about them, writing them out, and hopefully, I would say, for me, I am, using our own advice a lot. So.
I know. I've had some pretty good advice for myself.
Well, good. It's the execution that's always difficult when it comes for me, but I feel like I'm getting pretty good at that.
I'm getting better.
We're into the greatest time of the year. Fair?
Yeah.
College
Great.
football.
College football.
Best time of the year. Love it. It hasn't gotten cool here yet, but it will. I feel it. It's coming. And, there's lots of college football to talk about. There will be drama, It'll be great.
The quarter that I like the best is the fourth quarter, too. And we're probably going into the fourth quarter of business. You see how I tied that in?
God, what a brilliant segue.
If you go, if you do your books like everyone should.
Well, you could argue that some people, they've got those fiscal years that end in October, weird stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I actually have been I've been in a peer group with a guy like that.
Well, it's probably some big business brilliance. I don't understand.
This was not a big business guy.
Okay.
It really made zero sense for him ever to do that. And he said, my accountant told me to do that because of this or that. And it was stupid. It was tough for us to connect books and then benchmark each other, and he always had an excuse on why his numbers didn't look right, and it was just silly. So the title we're going with, well, we were thinking about, we'll probably ascertain that after this, but we were really talking about recalibrating. We talk about that a lot, right? And generally that's quarterly, and then figuring out going into the fourth quarter, are you winning or losing? It seems to be a good question to ask. Look up on the scoreboard. That begs the question, do you have a scoreboard? Do you know what the score is? In business, if you're going to boil that down, are you, do you have a budget? Do you have a plan? And where are you compared to that budget or plan? And if you're on budget or above, you're winning, by the terms you've set out. If you're below budget, under budget, that sounds like good. We're not talking about expenses necessarily. We're talking about revenue or performance. Are you underperforming compared to your budget? And if so, by how much?
And if you don't have a scoreboard, you need 90 in your life.
Yes.
You can set it up there. You can do everything that you need to do to set up all of your goals that you need to see right there.
Yeah, you said this a few times, especially in the last couple of weeks, is 90 taught you EOS.
It
right?
did. I backed into EOS from 90.
And I would say one of the most difficult things to set up and like, how am I going to do it and everything? How's it going to track and all that is the scoreboard. Scorecard. Sorry.
Yep. The scorecard is great. And we just did some additions to our scorecard today on the podcast.
Yeah. So that being said, we run our podcast on an EOS. We have an L10 meeting, level 10 meeting, and we go through our scorecard. And it's a hell of a lot easier using 90.
It definitely is.
So, speaking of recalibrating, what are some other questions? We asked, are you winning or losing? What else is there?
Do you need to run the clock out?
Yeah. Considering fourth quarter, right?
Yep.
Do you need to score, 14 more points, 21 more points? That's going to change your attack plan, Or do you just need to, or are you winning and you just need to end the game safely? Don't turn the ball over, limit risk.
And one of the things you can do, and you've been doing some of this, do you need to adjust the team?
Yeah. Do we need to make some subs?
Yep.
Oof. Are you ready to dive into that?
Yeah, let's dive into that.
All right. So, and everyone listening, the genesis for most of these conversations and most of these notes really come from our real world business interactions and what we're dealing with in our business and what we're learning, what we're executing. So if you've heard our podcast a few pods ago was our thoughts on the market. And that really comes from, us looking at our numbers. And if we're looking at our scorecard, we're looking at our budget, we're looking at our plan for the year. We have not, this is at the landscape company, have really been far off the budget, far off the plan. And when we're talking about recalibration, you go, well, how far off? And I can say 30% off, and that's a big chunk. And we built the team to support this, not super aggressive growth plan, but a growth plan during a time. And I'm just rehashing this if you hadn't heard. If you haven't listened to our thoughts on the market, go back and listen to that. It was, 142. So, being pretty far off, that forces one leading an organization, me specifically in this scenario, to try to figure out how do I get back on track. And if sales aren't going to be the answer, then we have to reduce expenses. And so, you can only cut so much. Paper clips and, trash bags and things of that nature. And eventually we have to start getting down to, you ever heard me talk about throughput?
Yes.
Okay. So if you're listening, throughput, it really comes from a book that I read, probably 20 years ago called, The Goal. And I was rereading it. Forrest and I were rereading it because it's about productivity and all this stuff. And really, throughput is the activity that results in sales or producing dollars. So if you have people that are doing nice things, cool things that we would like to have them do, but the times are getting tough and it's not really producing any throughput, you probably got to start thinking about cutting that out. Like maybe we don't need to wash the trucks every week. This isn't an actual thing, but you get what I'm saying? It's not producing throughput. It just makes us look good. Maybe we can't afford to have a shop foreman. And you might go, what does a shop foreman do? Someone that receives materials and puts them in the right spot and all that. Maybe we got to have everyone step up and do a little bit more and reduce that position or remove that position, put that person into the field producing throughput. Maybe we've got a couple of production assistants, and it's a good idea. It's not a bad role, but we're just not producing enough income to necessitate that. And so you've got, I don't know.
Or maybe you look at how you can craft your positions that you have or the people that you have to create throughput.
There you go.
And I would venture to say, and I understand you're going to have accessory people. There's no doubt about it.
There's support people.
Like, you're going to have support people. But you should even craft their roles where they have throughput in their jobs.
Yeah.
Somehow, some way, which may be difficult.
Most of those ways, and I'll agree with you. I agree with you in that. But most of those ways are generally sales creating throughput. They can help, make sales faster, make sales easier, whatever. They're there to kind of make the team produce more efficiently, stuff like that. But if you don't have the sales, I've been saying this a lot, I can't change business physics, just because everyone's used to having that role and it makes their job easier. I can't change the fact that we're only bringing in X, which leaves only Y to cover overhead. And if Y doesn't cover, if you've got 10 coming in for overhead and your overhead is 11, you're going to have to reduce it by at least 1 to break even, and you probably ought to reduce it by 3 to have a little bit of margin. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, you got to create a buffer.
So, and it's a little bit difficult to discern what it is, but it's fairly simple stuff, man.
I know that we've been mentioning past podcasts a lot, but we broke this down on, I think it was episode 140 with standards versus goals.
Oh, yeah. Standard versus goals. That's a good one.
Yep.
Where we were talking.
And so something has to be a standard, which is how much do you have to bring in to cover?
Man, yeah. Hey, and that's a good one if we're talking about the jiu-jitsu gym. We kind of got it broken down where we know at this many students, we can add one more coach. And so every sort of level you go, you can have that. But if you don't set that standard, everyone, and this is human nature, and it doesn't mean they're bad people, but everyone wants to reduce their workload and their liability while increasing their compensation at the same time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Everyone wants to do that. And I get it.
Heck, I want to do that.
I would love to do that.
This season that I'm in, it's currently not that season.
Not that season.
It's not that season at all.
Nothing else I can say other than, it's a tough season, and I'm working my ass off.
I've not worked out in 2 weeks.
I noticed.
Because I'm fat now? What is that it?
Well, I thought you were off bread there for 3 weeks.
I am still
Are
off
you?
bread.
Good. Well, you look great, even though you're not coming to the gym.
I feel at my age, though, I'm losing muscle mass very fast.
You probably, if you're on Ozempic like I think you are.
I am not. I don't have Ozempic face yet. Do you know that's the thing?
Is it a thing? I know what you're saying as soon as you say it. I mean,
individuals
it
are losing muscle mass in their face because of this stuff. I would think
because they're not chewing or what?
I have no idea, but they say like it's a thing.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah. I didn't realize you had that much muscles in your face, but I guess you do in your cheeks and stuff.
Man.
And
you gotta. You never been chewing on something so much, like just a chewy steak that your jaw gets all sore.
Yeah, I love that. I love it.
I hate that.
Normally a cheap steak.
No, give me a
Golden
ribeye.
Corral.
Oh, I love Golden Corral.
Oh, me
the
too.
fried shrimp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll have to tell you about the story. The first time I took Stephanie to a Golden Corral.
Really?
Yeah,
my
she had
sister
never
worked
been
at a Golden Corral.
Really?
You don't think I abused that? I did.
Oh,
son.
I would.
The bacon. Get out of here. Where were we?
I don't know.
Where were we?
We kind of went off track, but it's okay.
We talk about business a good bit. Perhaps we should take care of some business of our own.
Hey guys, I want to tell you about my friend Wes Cody. He's the president of C2 Wealth Strategies, a financial advisory firm dedicated to providing personalized solutions for your financial needs. Wes and his team of professionals are passionate about helping clients create wealth and achieve financial freedom. At C2 Wealth Strategies, they believe in taking a holistic approach to financial planning and are committed to building long-lasting relationships with their clients, ensuring their financial well-being every step of the way. Don't leave your financial future to chance. Contact Wes and C2 Wealth today at c2wealth.com to schedule a consultation. Let Wes and his team help you build your financial future.
I want to take a moment to talk about someone who's been instrumental in my personal and business success. That's Johnny Barranco and his team at Barranco & Associates. For over 7 years, Johnny has been my go-to accountant and financial consultant. I can tell you that he's more than just a tax preparer. Johnny takes a holistic approach to all my financial dealings, aligning them with my long-term plans and personal lifestyle. I've recommended Johnny to several friends throughout different business groups around the country, and the feedback has been nothing short of exceptional. His expertise and service are top-notch. So if you're looking for someone who not only prepares your taxes, but also helps you strategize for the future, Johnny and his team at Barranco & Associates are the ones to call. Trust me, you won't regret it. So contact Johnny Barranco today and take the first steps towards financial peace. You're not going to regret this. Reducing overhead and really the idea of throughput being the deciding factor. And if people aren't able to produce throughput, you have to get rid of them because they're the ones that's driving up your overhead. They're the things, because it could be an expense too.
Yep.
That's nice to have, but you just can't afford it anymore. And really, when you come to recalibration like that, throughput is the deciding factor and the thing that you need to put the prism. You need to look through everything to see if you can afford it or not.
I think we skimmed over the book really quick. What was the book?
Oh, it's called The Goal.
Okay.
But the concept in it, and they talk about other things, but my big takeaway was throughput.
Gotcha. I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's a good one. And that's what we've been doing a lot of.
I think as you build a team, because right now I'm building a team.
Yeah.
And I think you could use that as a mechanism to create the positions that you need.
Yeah. Well, when you use a talent map, that's really what you're thinking about. If you're thinking about, hey, listener, talent map, we'll talk about that later. But if you're building a job description, I don't really like those. But if you're trying to come up with a position, you're thinking about what are the outcomes that this position is supposed to produce, and that ought to be a throughput-driven thought process to go, these are the 6-7 things that they're going to produce that actually produces throughput. So this company makes money.
That's so good.
Yeah. We were talking about calibration in the fourth quarter, and my particular scenario is that I've got to cut expenses and change the team in order to get back on track to have a chance of winning in the fourth quarter. And here's the thing, listener, I'm probably not going to win the game. I'm not going to be able to cut expenses and do everything to get back on track and meet or beat my expectations that I set in December of 2023. But I can win that quarter, and I can reduce the losses, and I can really, when we talk about calibration, I can get what is probably arguably more important, which is the lesson. The lesson. If you're off track, you ever heard me say win or learn?
Yes, all the time.
Yeah, man, I can't remember. Someone told me that. I think it was a wrestling coach back in middle school because I was terrible. But win or learn. When you win, it feels great and you think you're fantastic. Or maybe I'm talking about myself. I think I'm fantastic. But when I lose, that's when I really get a chance to learn what went wrong. Why was the plan? So why am I so far off the plan? Was it the plan? Was it me? Was it something else? Was it execution? Was it what usually is the problem is my overly optimistic take on the market and my abilities? Was it people, processes, or data? Or
is it just that you are really bad at learning from past mistakes like I am.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I would love to be one of those people that learn, like, those people that say, just watch other people and learn from their mistakes.
Oh, yeah. That would be great. And flatten the learning curve.
Yeah,
by
I've
learning
never
from
been
their
that
mistakes.
person.
No.
And so that goes back into paying. I always end up paying for my education by just doing sometimes the same thing I did last year.
Yeah.
That was not very smart.
Yeah. Education is expensive and it hurts.
It is.
Yeah. And the more expensive it is, the bigger the lesson, I guess. Yeah.
So when you looked at the team, when
Uh-huh.
you looked at your team in this time you're in,
Yep.
and you looked at throughput, how did you determine where to make changes?
I came up with a series of A, B, and C cuts. Really, what I did is I brainstormed. I took it like a clarity break. Really, now that I'm thinking about it, now that you asked the question, I knew where we were, right? I knew how far off we were. No good, no bueno. But even more than that, some of these months were causing, negative returns, negative, net and stuff like that. I had a conversation with Chris May the first time I ever actually met him, and we were talking, and how's your business going? I'm building this or whatever. And he'd been in business for a couple of years, and he was saying something about, and I was like, okay, well, how much do you bill out? Will we bill out? I don't know. Maybe build out $500,000. I don't really know. And I was like, well, what did you spend? Well, we spent $550. And I was like, okay, so you lost 50? He's like, yeah, we lost money then. So did you lose the money year before? Yeah, we're losing, but really we're building this business. So I was like, dude, you can't lose. You can't be okay with losing. I think people get okay with like losing money. And I know you've always said, hey, it's going to take you 5, 6, 12 months to build up. And I don't disagree with that. In some businesses, you can get up off the ground or before, but
sometimes 5, 6 years.
Yeah, well, you better have some damn deep pockets and some really good investors that are patient, and you better be a great salesperson to sell them on that idea.
Or you better be able to raise capital.
That's yeah. If you're able to raise capital like that, you're a hell of a salesperson.
Yeah,
and they're out there. But I'm not okay losing. Not okay losing one single month. It's not okay. Because I know, and here's what it is. I know the cash flow ramifications that are going to come down the road. And if I don't hit it hard, it's going to wreak havoc on everything. We're a people and equipment heavy business in the landscape industry, and there's real seasonalities to it. And so if, 1 month you're $40,000, $50,000 under, and you're running a net negative, for the next 2 months, you're going to be paying that bill, and it's almost double that in cash flow. So net negative is really going to be if you've got a 40% gross profit or something like that. 50% gross profit. That $50,000 is going to be $100,000 that you don't bring in over the next probably 30, 45 days. That's going to hurt. And where's that money coming from? To operate. And if it happens 2 months in a row, holy cow, you're in deep trouble. I say this with a whole lot of experience.
Yeah, you and me both in personal and business finances. To talk about debt, personal debt.
Yeah.
The same thing. You want to use that credit card? You go ahead.
And I was going to say, there's a lot of things that you can't cut. So either way, I knew the severity of the situation, so immediately started putting my thinking cap on and took it like a clarity break. Where, if you haven't heard us talk about clarity breaks or thinking time, no devices, a different place other than my office, a notepad. And just really, I had a bunch of reports, standard P&L. I had them broken out by month. I had year over year, period over period, percentage of income, things like that. So I could just answer some simple questions, and then came up with just a list of all the things running line by line, what I thought I could cut, and not hurt us from producing just the work that we had, right? Then I came up with a next series of cuts that might hurt, but might be necessary. I don't know. That was B. And then another series of cuts that if it really gets down to it, maybe we can do without this or that. Fair?
That makes sense.
I mean, it never got to the point where maybe we don't pay our insurance or our taxes or something like that. You know, I've seen people do that before, and that's absolutely ridiculous. What is it? There's a restaurant around here that went completely out of business, just not paying their taxes.
Oh, yeah, they'll show up.
Dude.
Don't pay them long enough. See what happens.
Get out of here. Hey, and they can take forever to pay you, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Don't get me started.
Yes, they can, as long as they want.
They owe me a bit, and I've been waiting on it all year. Never mind. So that's what we did. A, B, and C cuts, and all we did were we systematically went through the A cuts, tried to minimize the chaos as much as possible, and started reducing. And I ended up reducing somewhere around $20,000 a month in overhead. Then some of the cuts end up being, productivity issues and things like that you start finding. But we can talk about that too. Any questions in that process so far?
No, that's I just was wondering about that because I think a listener hears this and says, "Well, where do I start?"
Yeah,
and we were talking beforehand. I think a lot of companies, and I've been in this same place where I just let it keep going because I didn't even know.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't even know where to start.
We talk about business a good bit. Perhaps we should take care of some business of our own.
I want to tell you about one of our newest sponsors, Red Branch Outdoor Living. They create environments to bring people together by providing a turnkey solution for outdoor living with remarkable customer experience. They specialize in outdoor kitchens, pavilions, patios, pools, spas, and fire features. And they do it with integrity, innovation, and being remarkable. They did my outdoor space, and it turned out amazing. Check them out at redbranchconstruction.com.
I want to give a shout out to a friend and sponsor of ours, Chris Drogmiller from CMD Fencing. Let me tell you, I've had the pleasure of working with Chris personally over the last 3 or 4 years, and I've never encountered a fence contractor who excels in communication, craftsmanship, and timeliness like he does. Chris always delivers. I mean it. Fair prices, top-notch work, always on budget, and the best part for me, always on time. So if you're in need of a fence company to help you with a fence or any other outdoor wooden structure, give Chris a call. You won't be disappointed. Get in touch with Chris and let him and his team take care of all your fencing needs. CMD Fencing. Flesh that out some more for the audience because I think that's a really good point. You were going off on that.
Well, I think a lot of times that, especially when you're in a business like you're in, that's very heavy on labor.
Yeah.
You can say, well, I'm going to make this up next quarter.
Yeah.
And you can keep getting in the hole like you were talking about and just saying, oh, it'll get better next quarter. It'll get better next month. It'll get better next month. And it never comes because if you look at your data that tells you that, hey, leads are down by an astronomical amount.
Yeah. Leading indicators.
Leading
we'll talk about that, I'm sure.
Yeah, leading indicators. And so if you look at that and you just keep going and going and going, it can really put you in a hole. I've been there also.
Why do you think people do that?
I think, one, they have access to their banker.
Okay.
So, I've been there too.
So they've got some liquidity and they've got access to capital.
Yep. And then
God, that sounds fancy.
Lack of not wanting to have a hard conversation.
There you go.
Because I know several people that I've kept on my team that I just didn't want to have the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's probably the number one reason.
Yeah, I think so.
It's fear. It's I don't want to look like the bad guy. Really, it's just fear. I think everyone listening will say to others that I don't mind having tough conversations, and I would say most everyone is lying about that.
Oh,
that's the front you want people to think.
Right.
And when it comes down to it, it's tough having those conversations. And until you get used to it, you've accepted it, and you've had several, and you didn't it didn't blow up in your face, then I don't think anyone ever gets comfortable with it. But I think you stop avoiding it once you've done it enough. I think most people avoid it and they never deal with it. And maybe they make it through tough times by the skin of their teeth or whatever. But I don't think many people do it. It's a tough deal.
Throughput. I like that.
Yeah, throughput is good. Man, my brain is going 100 miles an hour about those tough conversations. I think they're like, I think they're like, when you're growing up and you're trying to figure out, you're no longer a teenager, you're no longer in high school. And in high school, it was kind of, you're kind of freebirding it, You think you're an adult, but you're still living at your mama's house kind of stuff. You think you're free and you're cool because you got a job, but you're not really paying for anything other than some of your extracurriculars, your gas, and maybe something else. When I was growing up, we didn't have cell phones or anything, so...
I did pay for $8 a month for a line into my bedroom.
Oh.
I had my own phone number.
That's golly. That is
in my trailer.
That was something right there, son.
Yeah.
Your own phone line?
Yeah.
Did you have your own answer machine?
Yes.
Golly, were you selling drugs?
No, I just had a waterbed.
I never... Oh, my God. Those things were terrible.
We had to reinforce the floor in my trailer to put my waterbed.
Why on earth? Waterbed.
It was amazing.
I had a waterbed too. They were terrible. It would get cold. So waterbed. I'm just thinking of you laying on a waterbed on your own phone line, feeling like I'm the king of the world.
Yes.
Either way. So you're growing up, and at some point you got to get out of mom's house and everything. And at some point you're really going to mess up, right? And I remember it pretty distinctly when I messed up and I had to go actually tell someone that was me and I was sorry. It was something I didn't want to do. And I had to I thought I was probably going to die. You know what I'm saying? And you've seen those stoic Marcus Aurelius type of quotes where something like we never suffer. We suffer in our minds more than we do actually. In reality. Yeah. I think all of that ties into that, where people don't want to address the obvious difficult conversation with someone else on the team because they're just afraid that it's going to blow up in their face, and they don't think about how bad and what are the outcomes if I don't do it, and we suffer in our mind way more than what's actually going to happen.
Yeah, have you ever wondered? Have you ever just worried over doing something that you thought was going to be hard, and then you did it, and you were like, "Well, that went way better than I expected."
Yeah. Well, and to the point that I was making earlier about growing up and saying, you're sorry. Once you kind of get on the other side of that, and you feel the relief. I remember that pretty distinctly, and it kind of changed me a little bit. Same thing when I was going broke. We've talked about this on the podcast. It was the housing crisis, and pretty much, man, all of the POAs that we had didn't have any money. So there was a bunch of money, almost overnight, a couple of months, they just stopped paying. And that was a decent amount of money, and a decent amount of money going out to get that work done. And then I thought I was smart that we would do this big commercial job, and that guy left in the middle of the night and owed me a bunch of money. So I was broke, busted, unavoidably, had to make some real tough decisions, and really had to let go half the team, in one day, and also say, hey, I'll pay you the rest of the week, I'll pay you for what you've done, but I don't have any money for severance, there's no severance package here. You're going to have to go file for unemployment. Well, how do I do that? I don't know, dude. How long will that take? I'm not actually sure. I'm terribly sorry, but I don't know. Here's what happened. These people stopped paying. I thought it would come around. We were doing this job. This guy left in the middle of the night. Here's where we're at. I'm broke, dude. Once I got through that, I learned the lesson that if I don't have the tough conversation, who will? And really, when it comes down to it, I'm a capitalist and all that stuff, and I make a return on me putting up capital at risk to, for this business to make money. That's how I make money. But in order to kind of protect that investment, I got to kind of make those tough calls and have those tough decisions, and I can't delegate that to anyone else.
Your job as a leader is a dedication to being misunderstood.
Oh, man. Yeah. Man, it really, yeah. Well, and remember we talked about the uncomfortable facts of leadership it was Kirby Smart that really had a little speech about it. The stuff that everyone talks about, the upside of leadership, no one talks about the downside, and you're going to hurt people's feelings, and it's going to be people you love and you care about, and you really won't have an opportunity to explain yourself. You just got to do it, and no one's going to understand.
And if you do explain yourself, they won't understand anyway.
Yeah.
Most of the time. So recalibrate. Is it time for you to recalibrate?
Look, not all of you have to deal with workman's comp, but those of you that do know that it's time-consuming and it's a headache. Insurance in general feels like something that happens to you rather than for you. But partnering with someone that really knows their stuff, like Chris May, with LTN Insurance, you've heard him before on the podcast, offers you the opportunity to regain control of your insurance. By collaborating with Chris, you have the chance to craft a personalized plan that ensures you receive optimal coverage at the best price. At LTN Insurance, their foremost core value is centered on education rather than sales. Their core value actually says, we don't sell, we educate, because they truly believe in empowering you, the customer, with the knowledge to make informed decisions about your insurance. That's whether you do business with them or not. They want you to be informed. So you can trust Chris and look him up, give him a call, or go to the website ltninsurance.com. We have gone off on a whole bunch of recalibrations.
We have.
And
this was supposed to be a quick hit, but now it can't be.
It cannot be. I think it's really important. I think the markets are moving. Sometimes negatively. Most of the stuff that I've seen is negative. I've seen some people being positively benefited from the market. Those have been few and far between. But do you have a plan? Where are you at with that plan? What do you need to do to finish strong, or to get back on track, or just to save the year and make sure that you don't make any big mistakes in the fourth quarter? You don't want to fumble and let the other team pick up the ball and run it in the end zone, and now you got a big fight on your hands. You don't want to do that. So what do you need to finish the fourth quarter?
I think that's all we can talk about. I think we've gone a little too long on recalibration. But
yeah, probably.
Maybe not.
Probably. I'm feeling it viscerally.
Yeah, I feel it right now.
Yeah. You too. I'm sure we'll talk more about some other aspects of this year. It's been a wild year, man.
It's been a crazy year.
Well, hey, thanks guys for listening. Thanks for sticking with us for over 100 podcasts. We're coming up on 150. Really appreciate you guys tuning in and keeping us going.
Peace.